What's up, guys? Let's talk about this issue. Com2us has been hiding a lot of information from us. That information is simply, what are the multipliers on certain skills? Some of those are findable on third-party websites, such as what we have over here with the chow on these and these. These are actually more recently added in. Before it was just like adding in 100 attack, which also didn't make any sense. But then we also have them on the passive, which it is simply not stated how much it increased. I think that this is really a big issue for some people to fully understand the game, but also to optimize your builds. And there are a whole bunch of these kind of things out there. I will be making a list within this video, but also I would like to ask you to like this video. I will be sending this video out to Com2us as well. Maybe they'll do something about it, maybe not, but let's just see. And I've mentioned it before during the dev talk that we had in Berlin last year that I would like to see the multipliers of skills and not have to go through a third-party website to actually have an understanding of that. Same thing with artifacts. I would like to understand that by just reading something that is in-game. Because artifacts is still a subject that a lot of people don't understand and therefore don't farm and therefore don't progress. And I do know a lot of people also quit over that. They did, however, mention they don't want to make the game too complicated. So they mentioned that if you put the multiplier in here of this 4.3 attack, you would make this game too complicated. You would overload people with information. Can't find one right now, but you do all know some skills that's like super wall of text. Plus, I know the solution to that as well. Make a button here for more information, because that is the information that people actually care about. This whole freaking wall of text could be in this case summed up in just simply 4 lines of saying immune, HP recovery, cleanses, healing, and how much damage it is increased. That's making this shorter rather than this wall of text. Plus, some of the old units also have like this text that doesn't make any sense. It's like an accurately aimed deadly thrust. That sounds like something you see on TV on the after hours. Let's make a list of things that don't make any sense, or a few skills that actually do make sense, because they do it for some skills, but they don't do it for some other skills. So let's make that list. Once again, please like this video so I can give it to Com2us with a little bit more body saying it's like, hey, people care about this shit, just put it in game. It's not that hard. And if you don't want to overload people with information, simple button, more information, which is probably less information than this in the first place if you just sum it up in small lines. Because this channel's burning rage to inflict damage just deals damage. Like, who the fuck cares about this burning rage? Roar. A small example is Antares. He gains 15% chance whenever the enemy turn ends. If this effect doesn't activate, the activation chance will be increased. By how much? No one knows. Is it a linear skill? Is it an exponential skill? Is it having a cap at 50% or 100%? No one knows. No one has ever been able to tell me. And you also cannot find that in here. And we put that in the Com2us doesn't make sense list. Another super funny one. This is one that you're probably not gonna know. Linderman. What does Linderman have? First of all, we have a may stun the enemy. Then we go for a stuns the enemy. And then we go for a stuns the enemy for sure. I'm actually gonna test this if this doesn't have a resistance check. Okay, a 0 accuracy, a Linderman into a Nigong with 100 res. Let's see if he stuns for sure. Yeah, seems to be stunning for sure. But he also has multi-hits of stunning. That's kind of odd to have. Yeah, okay, I guess every hit stuns without a res check. But it's a multi-hit stunning without a rest check. Why do you need even multi-hits for that? Like, every time you see it, it's 3 stuns straight up. Stuns for sure. What happened to irresistible attack or like a guaranteed land? No, stun for sure. Another one that doesn't make that much sense to me. The ally will be revived with a little HP. What the fuck is a little? Is that 1? Is that 5? Is that 100? Is that based off like 1%? What the fuck is a little? Delicia actually has the same thing. And I do know Delicia revives with 1 HP, supposedly. So therefore, a little means 1. Just put 1 HP. I guess this will be a way to test it. You kill you, I revive you, I do a skill. Therefore, you have debuffs, therefore you have a 1 HP, but your passive only does 0 HP on this for damage. Right? We have you killing you, that's fine. We revive this, yep, 1 HP. Well, it does actually show 1 HP on the revive over there. So, but then let's see, yep, actually did do 0 over there. So that is, a little means 1. Doesn't make any sense. I can't deny that 1 is very little, but then again, just put 1. I bet you guys are familiar with Diana. Diana has the passive where if she goes to human form, her HP will be transferred into attack. However, let me tell you a different one. The light pony has it slightly different. Her HP will be transferred into speed. But have you ever seen a light pony started lapping you because it was in human form and got extra speed? Does this shit even work? How much is this? Also, then again, we have no clue how much this is neither. And yeah, I do know Amelia has the same passive, but I've never seen these units lap. So let's see if we can kind of make it where it maybe would be lapping-ish or something. I don't know. So to test this one, I put as much HP as I can humanly find on this pony over here with 1 speed more on this Varamos. And I guess, well, you have like the ticks and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But at some point, you should be faster, right? But at least with this much HP being transferred into that, 1 speed faster, let's see if it actually matters anything. I'm kind of doubtful, I don't know. So first, let's hit this. You already get a bit of bar on this hit, so it's maybe a little bit of an unfair trade, but at some point, technically, you should start lapping, right? Okay, it starts lapping, so... But also by a very minimum amount, and we have about like plus 60k HP. So that's pretty much like the margin that you need to get extra speed in there on this unit. So once again, by how much? At least it does work. I'm somewhat surprised that it does work, not gonna lie. Because in an RTA match, I've never seen this happen. Then again, I've also never seen a plus 57.5k pony, but you get the idea. Let's see if we can find some more that make absolute no sense. Well, the most easy are these kind of units. While under Thunder State, the attack inflicts damage that increases according to your defense. By how much? Something that we can simply not see over here because the Thundered State is not included in here in the data mining. Something like this does make sense though. Like you just increase your speed by 100%, or in this case you increase your attack by 100%. That part is mentioned. It would be nice if it is mentioned that it is only from the base and it's not from total attack. But sure, besides that, it at least makes sense. Strangely enough, for Fengyang, it is actually in the data mining. So this one is your attacks inflicts additional damage to your defense. And then if you go to the data mine, it is a multiplier of 1.6. So it is mentioned for some in the data mining, and it's not mentioned for some others. How about you just mention everything and in-game? Because if we go to Audrey, then it is deals the bonus damage proportional in difference between the target's defense and your defense. And we check over here, and it states nothing. Also, one of those things that we had to figure out by ourselves. Team up with another ally. The number of allies increases up to 3 according to your defense. Just put the numbers in there. How hard is it? And there's actually a few more. For example, Gideon has the same thing. When is it 35%? Well, apparently it's plus 5,000 defense, but why does someone has to figure that out? Of course, we have the Ivor, the Britta, also has like a whole bunch of those kind of things. Just mention the thresholds. It's not that hard. We have one more over here that is also saying it's like, ooh, could hit up to 7 according to your speed. But just say how much speed you need. Another one over here. We're going to get more continuous damage, so more dots by the number of damage you dealt. And then how many? You have to figure it out yourselves. Same for some of those speed scalers over here. So it's up to 100%, but does that mean you need 100 speed extra? Well, in this case, it actually is, but just mention that. Same for the newly released Agrius. With the Syria, at least it's mentioned towards up to 100%, but in here it's just not mentioned at all. Same with the Fire Ezio, aka the Patrick. Do you start off with a 30% and then does it go for a 0.7% for every percent? Or does it just go up to 1% every time and you already have enough at 30% that you do 100% ignore defense? One or the two could be true, I don't know. Funny enough, the Miles passive wasn't mentioned before, but now if you take on War Farm, it does actually mention how much speed scaling there is on that passive, which is actually similar to the Chow. That stuff got added later, so they have been looking at making these things semi-more public, but then we still have a whole list of things that are not really that public. Same as these skills, which often are mentioned, it's like, oh, the attack speed increases or the damage increases according to HP decreasing or anything like that. Very often the numbers are not written down and the numbers are also not visible on these kind of sites. But then if we go to a Wolyong, which actually does have something similar like that, it is mentioned. So it is very weird where sometimes it is mentioned, sometimes it's not mentioned. But then again, just mention everything and in-game. Because if we go to Valeska, there's also a damage dealt increase proportion to lost HP. That part is once again then not mentioned. Or simply for your Kaki, how much extra defense or attack do you get based on the other one? We have a similar over here with the freaking Imp. Well, we're kind of far-fetching on units we will never use right now, but you kind of get the idea of how many units are out there which are just not mentioned what they're exactly doing. And with this, we easily made a list of 10 units. There's probably a lot more units. Let me know in the comments if you do know about more units. But let me also give you an example of how it could be / should be. You could just simply go for an explanation like this. When your HP is at 23.5%, what the fuck is even that number? This is like the water gin, but doesn't make that much sense for me as well for the exact number, but just put the number in there, right? Another perfect example and very commonly used unit is Chilling. Some people say it is 19.5, some people say it's 20, some people say it's somewhere in between. We do not know how much speed chilling actually does get per buff that he has. Just let us know in the skill itself. And while editing this video, finding more and more units, and probably this list goes way longer than the 12 I have over here, plus like some of those are kind of summed together, so it's more like a 20 list already. Either I'll let me know in the comments if you have more of those. But Sonia, the faster you are than the enemy, the more shit you give. But is that going to be like, it's a 50% or 50%, but should I therefore be 50% faster than the enemy? Should I be 50 speed faster than the enemy? I don't even know, to be honest. And this thing is not telling me neither. Another thing that's often not properly mentioned is where if a skill says this damage is proportional to your defense and it's full defense scaling, as we have with Bulldozer both skill 1 and skill 3. And in skill 2, it's also properly mentioned for HP and defense. But if we go to Copper, Copper does say the same thing. The damage is increased according to your defense, but then he's attack scaling. How should someone know this? That doesn't make any sense. And the S2 is full defense scaling, but it is mentioned as the exact same thing as skill 1 and skill 3. But skill 1 and skill 3 are attack scaling, skill 2 is only defense scaling. That makes absolutely no sense. In this case, it actually does say slightly different. It says dealing damage proportional to your max HP. So it's not increased by your max HP, but it is just proportion to your max HP. Let's see if that works for the other way as well. So this one is saying if it's increased, it is still attack scaling. If it says proportion to your max HP, then it is not attack scaling. However, that logic already kills itself over here because this one says increased. However, it is full scaling. So then this skill should technically say the damage is according to your defense. But this one is also stating increased, which doesn't make any sense. And yeah, this list probably goes on and I can make this video super long, but let's go on to the next part. I think that would make the game a lot more understandable, and it's the same thing for artifacts. A lot of artifacts to a lot of people don't make that much sense because it is not really mentioned how, what, and where, and why. They would have to look up a guide or would have to look at some third-party website to actually explain what are all of these artifact lines. And sure, I kind of get the idea of Com2us saying it's like, oh, we don't want to overcomplicate the game. That makes a lot of sense. But then again, I do know a lot of people that left the game because of artifacts, because they simply did not understand half of these artifact lines. And if you simply had like a sandbox environment kind of thing in game where you could actually test things, people would have been more understanding to whatever this is or that is, without people having to ask the question, for example, oh, recovery S3, does it work on vampire only if there's a recovery on that skill itself? Or the same thing for life drain. Does it work with a vampire? Does it work for recovery? Well, it works with both, but how would someone actually know without actually looking up a guide? They cannot really find that in-game. That should be findable in-game. Just simply explain that somewhere. And you do have this help section over here. It's been a little bit more expanded as of recent days with like getting the explanation of all of these harmful facts in there. For example, some people were saying it's like, oh, but the bomb stun is not affected according to your accuracy. Well, apparently it is. And slight niche kind of things that some people don't know as well you can find in here. Similar to as like when you're sleeping, you cannot receive a glancing hit. So whatever you hit off element doesn't matter. It's never a glancing hit. Or the same thing over here, that glancing hit still lowers your damage output rather than just a full-on hit, outside of just critting or not. I think in here an explanation about artifacts would be really nice as well, because in here they just put, yeah, there's artifacts and they're dropped somewhere. Good luck. You could make a whole list of artifact explanations of every individual line here as well. It's not that difficult. Plus, then again, I would also highly recommend to put, I think there's a lot more skills in game that are just simply not mentioned, and it would help people out if they first of all already know the multiplier, because just mention the multiplier in game, like legit every game out there does that. Even all of other Com2us games do that as well. And just simply for the things that are not mentioned in here and also not mentioned on third-party websites, which you did mention yourself, it is fine if you have to address that to a third-party website. Well, at least make it visible for the third-party websites how much damage increase you will have according to your current HP on these kind of things. Plus, if you want to make your game more simple, especially for newer players, I've seen that in Ethereum Restart, it is actually kind of smart, is to put what the skill does as a main thing on the skill itself rather than putting like the icon just there. For example, if it's like a single target nuke, it's a single target nuke. If it's AoE nuke, it's AoE nuke. If it's a cooldown reset, it says that. Especially when you have the monsters over here in the World Challenge battle right now. If you go into a monster, you don't want to be going in game and being like, let me read this whole wall of text, what it actually does. You just want to see passive, strips, this one, debuffs. AoE. Simple as that. But let's see with this video if Com2us does actually make a change in that, because it would be very nice if we can actually just see more information in game. And that is about a lot of. So if you do agree with that, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. See you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.